My name is Ursula Lentine, and this is Mark Pendroy, and we are here to discuss the way. The way of the spiritual path, meaning everything has its own way. Babies have their way, people have their way, dogs have their way, cats have their way, and there's a way about everything. When we can start understanding what is the way of things, we can move into the way and be in the flow of the way. Today, my guest is Mark Pendroy. He is a very wise gentleman, coming from a place of lots of experience in life, lots of mistakes in life, but the wisdom that he has cultivated up to this point in his world is precious to me. I think there's a lot of value in things that Mark shares with me personally, and I wanted to bring him on the show and share 3 important things in his life. And when we start understanding where Mark is coming from as far as his way, we can see the spiritual path, the way of the spiritual path showing up. So listen for that and compare it to your own way. And that's when we start listening and feeding back and reviewing when we listen to other people's point of view. Focusing now, I could talk to you, Mark, for a long time about many things because we have very deep, meaningful personal conversations. But today we're going to target 3 important things in life. So what are the 3 important things in life that you have chosen to talk about today?
It's very hard for me to come up with this list, so I'll probably be a little bit all around the board a little bit because there is so much to be said for all of these thoughts that have come to my mind. But the one thing that overall is the general theme is to wake up with joy and to be able to not be affected by the normal difficulties in life that seem to flood in as you open your eyes and your first look of the day. Sometimes, quite often, is centered around the problems that you have to solve today. And one of the things I'm trying to look at is those are the things that keep us asleep. Those are the things that keep us dancing to this illusion that's not really beneficial to ourselves or anybody else around us. So waking up with an ability to see the joy of the moment and to see what God has created. And the second thing is to understand that the difficulties in life are opportunities and that they're there for us to learn and grow. The only bad lesson is one that you don't learn. And a good lesson is one that you see the mistake and you understand what it takes to correct it and you make the necessary adjustments and you get a different result. And then that really feeds the rest of your results. And then ultimately this leads to real true compassion is what I think. And a lot of people think that has a lot to do with love of self, and I think that it does, but I also think that it is the most godlike of all the efforts that we can make because of the fact that God is a giver, and we cannot give like God, but we get a fine example of what giving is.
And I think when we're in the place of compassion, that's when we're really in a place of flow. Because we're going to your second point of obstacles and pain and difficulties in life, that they're really opportunities.
And surrendering to those.
Yeah, that's the trick.
That's the one part about it that turns it into a real lesson that you learned is the fact that compassion is more godlike, and it's more centered on, like, if you're having a conversation, a real conversation with God, not this supplication deal that a lot of people think is prayer, and to them it may be. Who's to know that? But the bottom line is I understand that when I'm sitting there talking to God, I'm going to leave out some stupid stuff.
You can try and bring the best.
I'm not going to be asking for no parking place. I'm talking about more serious stuff on how my lessons can be translated to help others. And this is something that I kind of stumbled on in my own recovery, and realizing that what I had was valuable to others and that I should share it with them. And especially if it was evident that that would make their life easier, that would be along the lines of helping and not harming someone. And let's face it, when we're in the self-driven mode, you know, we are not considering others. You know, we're considering that we're hungry. We're not considering that somebody else may be hungry too. We're only seeing our needs. And it's a quite human thing, and it doesn't make you a bad person or anything. It just means that you're, at that particular given moment, you're given to feeding the loudest monkey at the table, I guess. Whoever can scream the loudest gets the action. And that's not really the best way to go about things, but it seems like that's the way. And really, ultimately, the circle of this conversation should end up at it really doesn't matter my mistakes and how long I've been asleep and how many days or months or years that I spent asleep. The fact is how soon did I wake up and what did I do with waking up? You know, and that ability to see joy means I've got to translate this and pass it on. You've heard that you tell a joke 3 times. After you tell it, after you hear it, that you'll never forget it. If you turn around and find 3 people to tell that joke to, and you tell it right and everything else, 3 successful tellings of that joke will permanently put it in your mind. But you will no longer be sitting around the campfire going, yeah, I know a lot of great jokes, but I can't remember any of them.
Right.
You know,
So to your point around surrendering to the process of learning our mistakes, because we're human, we're flawed. We're going to make mistakes. We're gonna crash into the wall, you know, instead of the door. We're going to ruin relationships. We're going to do self-abusive things. We're going to make choices that lead us off into the woods instead of down the path, the straight and narrow path.
Believe it or not, that's the ones you learn, and that's the ones that give you valuable information that you can pass on to others because they need this map, you know, especially if you're the holder of that information, you know. And let's face it, with the world as diversified as it is, we're all adopting different specialty roles in this whatever you call it, post-millennium dip we're in right here or whatever. It seems like that's the case anyway. And so, however, the sooner I can forget that this boundary exists, then the closer I am to God. Then I realize that the lessons I learned, and I'm less likely to get into situations where I have to learn a brutally hard fact and lesson. But then again, God's the one who's in charge, I think. So I just try to wake up on that side. But again, I can't expect to have any growth if I don't have the, I don't know how different people put it, it's phrased different in different religions, but that you have to have some kind of difficulty or pain for you to enjoy any marked progress.
In the Tao teaching, they talk about obstacles and trials. So that we go through trials in order to learn things. And that, like you said, these trials kind of come to us so we have that opportunity to learn. In my work, I help a lot of people. I facilitate things. I teach children spirituality, have the meditation. Why I do the things that I do is because I think someone should be in the front of the line going this way, not that way. That way doesn't work. I've tried it already. That way doesn't work. This is the easy, smooth way. And I talk about consistency and things like that. Also, we do a lot of healing work, deeper healing work to get those obstacles out of the way. So in your path, when you talk with your groups of men, and even just when you're talking, because I've seen you just talk to random people, and it's like you give gifts of your wisdom, of the things that you've learned along the way. you've been kind of asleep for many years and then you woke up. Tell me a little bit about your story of your turning point in your life that started you moving into a place of wisdom.
Well, it's more or less, I had a preponderance to want to escape when I was a child. My childhood wasn't very glamorous or fun, and so I kind of made up things as I went along, and eventually I, enjoyed drinking alcohol and a few other things, and got a little bit too involved in that area of my life, and which led me down a wrong path where I didn't recognize these opportunities that I'm talking about. That's so important for us to recognize and surrender to them. That I didn't, and so for a long time I was trapped in this dream world of where I thought you could adjust everything with some chemical. And at any rate, my travel in recovery has led me to a deeper awareness and surrender to those opportunities that present themselves so often in our life, but if we weren't asleep, we would see them, And the fact that trying to extend that period of waking up in what I tried to do, because I tried to build on moments of happiness, and I didn't have those, and I was confused because, again, like I said, the message is joy, not happiness. Happiness is too temporal. It does not last. It's too subject to change. If the owners decide to change the rules, they're subject to change. And so it's not as dependable as joy is, because joy is from the heart, and it's deep-seated, and it's planted in there by something divine.
Yeah, I say happiness.
It's a divine storage place.
I say happiness is because of something. I'm happy it's my birthday. I'm happy because I'm going on a trip. I'm happy because I got this new
Right.
thing.
Oh, yeah. It's hard not to be happy when I just won the lottery. And, my wife's having quintuplets. And we just got listed on the New York Stock Exchange. And, everything's just going grand.
But it's external. It's external cause.
Right. Even if it's internal stuff, it's still not dependable to last unless you feed it, unless you really surrender to it. And then you get the lesson, and then when you translate that lesson to help others, and that's what recovery taught me really basically, is once I got out of the whirlpool, there was nothing left for me to do but to reach my hand out to the next guy that was right behind me trying to get out.
Right.
And it was so perfectly scripted, that I'd be there at the right time in the right place, and to lift him, or be a part of lifting him out of his misery, because it was really God that did the work. I just carried the story.
Yeah. So when we surrender, it's almost like we go into the flow of things rather than fight the flow.
And a lot of times it's like you see it in yourself and you can deny it in yourself, but you can't deny it in others. Or I can't.
The
personally.
truth, you mean?
Yeah, and when I really realize it and I see it working in someone's life, I can no longer use that disclaimer of, oh, nothing ever worked for me, because then I see it working for someone else. And the very reason I shared it with him, I know it's already been tested, because I don't want to pass on anything that's wrong. And that's really the test for me, is when I see it working. When I see it actually beginning to take shape in someone else's life, I can't deny it.
Tell me about the story that happened to you with the cirrhosis of the liver. That was your...
Well, I had, like I say again, I had a propensity to drink alcohol, and I eventually ended up with the hepatitis C virus, and also I ended up with cirrhosis as a result of the hep C virus. And that indicated that I needed to get the treatment, or the cirrhosis was going to give me cancer of the liver, which is the death sentence pretty much nowadays. So I accepted the cure. I did it. I worked while I was doing it. God provided me with a reasonable position with some friends of mine, and I didn't have to overwork, but I worked hard, but I didn't have to overwork, and I could make my own schedule.
So you were working even though you were getting chemo and all that?
Yeah. Again, I was going to a lot of meetings and trying to do what I could to help the next guy, because I'd obviously been given a great deal of freedom. At the time, I had about 4.5 years without a drink or anything else, and the bottom line is I cleared the virus, and I wasn't supposed to, because of the different genotypes of cirrhosis and Hep C. The chances of you getting healed have different rates for different genotypes, and there is about 9 or 10 classifications now of the different genotypes. And so, anyway, I just put it up to God, and I kept showing up in my recovery, and I did what I was told. Even at 4 years, I still felt like it was best of me to run everything I did by somebody else that did not have those distractions that grabbed me in those first moments of wakefulness. You know, when I wake up and go, oh, woe is me, and oh, how am I going to get this done and that done, and I got to be, you know, and all that stuff, and I wasn't in the way, and I let somebody else sort of help me with those decisions, and I followed what they said. You know, it was more than one. You know, it took a village to raise me. And,
and that's after your recovery.
And so I am it's a good thing, too, because I'm a collective point for a lot of information. And Socrates said that to live your life as if you were dying is the wisest thing you can do for yourself. So that promotes wisdom, is for me to think less about myself, you know. And it's hard to imagine that in today's world, the way things are sort of set up. It's like people don't do things that way. You're not supposed to.
Yeah.
You're supposed to put yourself first, and because nobody else will or whatever. I don't know the thinking behind it. I don't propose to, but I know that this new way of thinking that I'm talking about provides for a much better day. Every day that I wake up with that joy, and I try to carry that joy with me as far as I can into the day, I am treated well. And you can just imagine each and every one of us have a unique and beautiful story. And you can imagine yourself in this story, and everyone you meet today, you're going to smile, and you're going to be extra kind to them, and you're not going to know where that came from. You're just going to do it. And then you're going to say to yourself at the end of the day, wow, everybody. And that one problem that could have really turned out bad at the dry cleaners this afternoon, and it turned out sweet, oh, this is something I need to hang on to. And you begin to realize that you were programming this stuff. You're manufacturing your own misery, so to speak. And you don't have to, you know. But most of us are a little bit lost in that regard, and it's hard to tell or trust, and you just have to keep looking, and eventually I believe that you'll find, if you're looking for that opportunity, I think, in the fact when I realized that my story about liver cancer and addiction and stuff like that I came out the other side of that with God's help and the help of my fellow man, I realized that my life started to change, and I started to see myself different. And I didn't see myself as a victim. I saw myself as somehow something had been accomplished in me that hadn't been able to accomplish with all my years of effort before. But it was sort of sidetracked by my own self-centeredness. So I couldn't really get at the truth of it. But when I saw the light come on, that's when it really happened for me. When I saw the light come on in somebody else's eyes, and I realized it came on because of something I said. And it really wasn't something I said. I just translated it from God, you know, what the thoughts that he gave me on this and the different people that he's exposed me to, whether it's in books that I've read or people that I've had relationships with. I always learn something from everybody. And that's the other thing. If you think of it as every person you meet has something of value to give you. Like, what were you supposed to tell me? You know, I don't even know you, but I know you're supposed to tell me something.
Yeah, if
You
you're
know.
looking for goodness within
You know,
the
is
other
it-
people, you're going to find it.
Exactly.
If you're looking for a fight, you're going to find that too. If the world's
Yeah,
against, I always describe
exactly.
metaphysics as, an angry person lives in an angry world, and a peaceful person lives in a peaceful world, and we all live in the same world. So it's our choice, like you're saying, to wake up in a place of joy. What for the
And
last
safe.
and safe, to feel safe. Yeah, and when we feel safe, it's because we trust the universe or God or whatever it is that we're talking about. Because if I want to feel safe in the world today, I could watch the news and not feel so safe. So it's our reference of where safety comes from, and you and I are on our spiritual path, so our safetiness comes from a source that we can access within. What are some of the spiritual practices that you do to bring you to a place of wisdom,
Well, that's a good
clarity?
question, because my focal point is really kind of collective. I think the word's
Eclectic?
eclectic. Yeah, I've really gathered from. Well, I was raised up. My mother was Native American, but I was raised up in a Catholic environment of Catholic schools, and then I went to public schools. But then I ventured into the Eastern religions about the time of the late 60s and the early 70s. I was gravitating towards the Maharishi and Paramahansa Yogananda's Self-Realization Fellowship. But then my self-centeredness took over, and that sort of fell out of favor with me, and I started pursuing the hedonist route, and that wasn't very good either.
But it was part of your spiritual
Yeah, it was
path.
part of my story, and it's actually part of what most people relate to, because it was kind of like I wasn't that much different than everybody else of the time. That time was a period of when people were acting like that, and then I, as I grew in recovery and started realizing I need to have a conscious relationship with my Creator, and in order for me to do that, the 12-step route to me proved to be the most successful, and also it was one that appealed to me because it allowed me to have my own conception of a power greater than myself. I didn't have to adhere to anybody else's schedule or whatever.
Doctrine.
Or doctrine. And so I tended towards the free meditation, freedom giving meditation, not free as in money, but free as far as having to be able to have your own types of thoughts. And so that's been a very good reward for me. And I also, in the light of my cancer, I did go to see John of God, which was a healer based out of Abadanja, Brazil. And I saw him in New York for about 4 days or 5 days, and tried to get a healing. Actually, a healing was done on me, and but obviously it didn't work that long. But
No, when you came back from that, you were stronger, way stronger.
Oh,
I think
really?
oh yeah. I couldn't believe it. You were way, way stronger.
really,
Oh, for sure. I think that extended the quality of your life considerably, the John of God. And then Master Marilag from Pranic
Master
Healer.
Marilag from Pranic Healing Group, and Ursula Lentine, you and the services that you provide, and the family of origin stuff that you do, and to cultivate that meditation group is monumental. I know that because I'm a person who holds together a fairly large group of men that meet weekly, and I see what Ursula does when I'm watching her prepare for the meeting that's going to start, or wrapping up because the meeting's over and she's getting ready to go home. And I see, and I know that even as a close personal friend of hers, I can't get a hold of her a lot because she's so busy. She's so busy doing stuff And that's the other thing. If you can keep yourself busy with this positive forward momentum type of stuff, you don't have time to entertain this thought of woe. You know, it's much more exciting to think about joy today than it is to think about woe. And that's why you have to kind of generate. I felt it was important for me because I was an intensely physical person. I had to generate a lot of momentum in the other direction that my disease was trying to take me.
Sure, it's the Newton's law. You know, if something's in motion, it's easier to keep it in motion than to have it stop and put a lot of effort into starting it again. And I think when things are pulling us in a backwards direction to move forward. So we've covered everything here.
And in order to keep myself, I continued to evolve myself in all this. Until I had cancer, I swam 2 miles a day. And I constantly think in all the efforts, all the things that we do to benefit ourselves spiritually and emotionally and mentally, we don't often think of it as something that's all that important. We think we could think about that in between stuff. Or I'll think about that before I go to bed. You know, I won't think about that right now. Something else is and so I think to avoid putting yourself in that direction is to constantly try to push yourself in that opposite direction, what's going to yield more of what you're really trying to get at and what you're really trying to help someone with. Because quite often times I will be telling a story that's not helpful to somebody about something that I just got wrong, you know. But the idea is when things start to look bad, that's really when we got to double up.
I agree.
And whatever it is that we're doing in our spiritual program, we got to double up. If we're starting to feel uncomfortable and things are starting to not work, that's the ultimate sign of whether something's good or bad. Does it work? If it doesn't work, it's not good.
That's a great.
If it works, it's good. And so be honest with yourself of what you really mean by work. And that means surrender yourself to the true facts. And that's really the ultimate thing. Really, Bill Wilson said this, you know, that if the people who do not recover are the people who are unable to be honest with themselves. So when you want to wake up, and we're talking about waking up, you have to do the things that it will take to wake you up.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that you can do. And then trust that somehow what you're believing is right and true and correct, and so it can be accomplished. It can happen.
Excellent.
You know, but maybe not in your timeline or in exactly what you think the package should be or whatever. But it's bound to arrive, you know, in such a way that it'll change you. If it doesn't change the physical things that are giving you problems, it will change how you see them and how you can actually live with them now without having them upset you. You know?
Excellent. So,
but anyway, my message is of love and compassion for each and every one of you, and I hope that this talk has been helpful to you, and I look forward to seeing and speaking with you again. Thank you.
So to wrap things up, let's recap. We talked about waking up, being awake, not only just in the morning, but just waking ourselves up to a consciousness, to a different reality, and waking up with joy. So in the morning, a very practical thing that you're sharing with me is to wake up in the morning joyful, because from then on out, you're going to have a better day. And to make decisions along the day about surrendering into our obstacles, our trials, our tribulations, and saying, what's my lesson here? Because that quote that a poor lesson is the one that's not learned. And moving into a place of compassion, because when we're thinking about other people rather than ourselves, there's more flow, there's more continuity.
That's divine.
And when I have compassion for you, I'm also having compassion for that which is in me as well. Because when I see the truth in you, the beauty in you, I'm also experiencing that. So when we have compassion for one another in the world, in life, in the day, just in our course of the day-to-day things that we do, it's important to be awake in the moment, to surrender to any obstacles and learn lessons, and then therefore to have compassion and stay with each other and with ourselves and with the divine all in one thing, over and over and over and over again. So those 3 points are very, very valid.
On September 18th of 2013, I was diagnosed with a squamous cell carcinoma, which is a form of cancer, and with a HPV-16 human papillomavirus attached to that. And I was given from 7 to 11 months to live at that time. It's currently 27 or 28 months since that diagnosis, and I'm still alive. I don't appear to be actively dying at this moment, although matters have gotten considerably worse. But I just wanted you to know that that's a status of where, and so what happened to me as a result of applying what we talked about is I've been able to see every day past that 11-month extension that they gave me at the very longest I would live. Every day past that 11 months is a bonus. And so my wife and I consider it as one more day of joy that we get to spend with each other. That's one of the ways that you can put into practice the small joys of your own life. You know, maybe you will overcome some things in your life that, you know, require for you to give yourself a little hand of applause or something. And again, it can work for everybody. It's worked for me, and I didn't do it. Like I say, I've laid out normal things that regular people do. None of these are extraordinary. You know, I'm not named Mother Teresa or anybody. You know, this is all pretty normal stuff for all of us, and I'm glad to be on this journey with you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on the Way of the Spiritual Path, and join us on the Lighter Side Network. We're so happy that you're here with us and growing, learning, and living together. Thank you.